Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
Self to self. Love, loving loves. Love, truth, seeing itself in all these forms, everywhere, irrespective of anything and nothing. I'm so glad to be here to introduce this lineage here. I brought my photographs along. And you already have Ramana Maharshi, H.W.L. Punja, affectionately known as Papaji, Eli Jackson, and Gangaji. And then there's Gangaji over on that side as well. Okay. Anything that I could say about any of these beings falls short. Just already I failed. It would all be something about the mind trying to capture events, situations, concepts, dates, times about any of these people, where they're from and who they are, where they were born and how old they are, and what they've taught and what they've said. It's not it. It's all some kind of capturing by the mind to evaluate, to make conclusions about, to make statements about. And it never, ever, ever touches the truth of who they are. And that's the message. The non-teaching of self-inquiry. That Ramana, through the grace of the mystery of what this is, this existence, woke up in the way he woke up. Ramana, yes, in India, born 1879 in India, was, of course, living in the country that has this 4,000 or 5,000 thousands of years of tradition of the non-dual philosophy, Advaita Vedanta, the Upanishads, whatever. Yet, here's this 16-year-old boy, having read virtually none of it, has not had a teacher. All he had was 4 years before, when he was 12, was his father died. And that split up the family in such an erratic way to all these different towns with relatives, that by the time he was 16, he had this overwhelming fear of death, so overwhelming that he said, I'm going to die. But he didn't say, I'm going to die, really. He said, what is death? What really dies? There's a big difference here. And here we have a 16-year-old boy who is not being distracted. Not saying, oh, well, this is so horrible, frightening. I'm going to go out and do X, Y, and Z distracting events to get away, which is like what we usually think of when we are confronted with some overwhelming fear. Somehow, some way, there wasn't a distraction. He said, no, I want to know what this truly is. My father died. I feel death. As if somewhere he knew that death wasn't really what people think it is. So he lay down on the floor of his room, a 16-year-old boy, and he was in a rigor mortis state. And felt what death really is, felt it through fully. and fully through. And when you feel something so fully through, there's only one. He woke up to what's really here. That death was a long held energetic belief, hallucination, mesmerization, hypnosis put on mankind since the beginning. So whatever he experienced, whatever the depth of that was, there's no way to measure it. There's no way to know. But yet it's one of those beautiful stories that we always point to, because shortly after that, like a week after that, he couldn't really do his studies at school. He just snuck out of the house, not telling anyone, took money and left. It's just so overwhelming. Left a note and went to Tiruvannamalai, or the holy mountain Arunachala, which was some 40, 50, it was probably more like 120 miles away, and took various trains to get there. And then sat in a temple for literally, in various spots in that area, for like 11 years, silent. This young boy being made fun of by passersby, but then also being taken care of by those who could see deeper than this disheveled young kid who was dirty and ate one, and hungry. And what makes someone do this? It's just one of the great stories that we point to of the depth of what can be, the realization that is so beyond this, what we perceive here in these names and forms. Okay, and there was a struggling sadhu who came to Tiruvannamalai once, maybe 11 or 12 years after Ramana got there. Then he was Kataraman. He didn't even have that name yet. And asked, I'm struggling. I don't know how can I get out of my struggle? And Ramana spoke for the first time. He didn't take a vow of silence. He just didn't speak. And that's the point. He just didn't have to speak. The depth of his experience was everything and nothing. There's no need to physicalize, as it were. So he started to speak, and then of course, an ashram grew up around him, and he delivered his very, very simple teachings. That's in his book called Who Am I? It's so simple, we miss it. Ramana is not a part, really, he made a real severed link with his heritage in India. He's not a Swami. He isn't from the lineage of Shankara, of the Swami order. He didn't have a teacher. Arunachala, they say, is his teacher. That's the mountain that he was at for all of his life. He didn't leave that mountain until, at all. And then he died in 1950. 1879 to 1950. He was just in his early 70s when he died. Okay. I want to introduce the core teaching of self-inquiry, but to do that, and I really have to bring everyone into the picture, because in 1910, now some 30-some years after Ramana, there is H.W.L. Punja, who had a more conventional life in a way, but he had this samadhi, this waking up experience at 8 years old. But then the thrust of his life, the 8-year-old, you're still growing, the thrust of his life, how can we say, the momentum of the thrust of his life covered it, but yet there's the memory that's always there. So for the rest of his life, as he married and had children and had a job, and literally did the things that we all do, was asking everyone, where can I find the face of God? And he was a devotee of Krishna. He comes from the more traditional Hindu tradition of his country, where Ramana really didn't. Ramana has no tradition. And that's the beauty of Ramana. That's really the base of this whole lineage. There is no tradition. There is no real teaching. Papaji, on the other hand, was very much a devotee of Krishna. But in 1944, at the age of 34, he was just... Someone led him, said, you want to find the face of God? We know someone in Arunachala. Go visit Ramana. He went to Ramana and looked into his eyes and went away. It wasn't right. It wasn't love at first sight. Ramana it was like Papaji went to the holy mountain of Arunachala and had these visions of Krishna, dancing with him, playing with him. Hallucinations, literally. He came back to Ramana and he was so ecstatic. I saw Krishna. I saw these hallucinations. I played with him. And Ramana said, a God that comes and goes is no good at all. And bang, he saw what was always there. Something, what is it, that doesn't come and go. In the meditation this morning that we had, that beautiful stillness, what's always here? What comes and goes and what doesn't come and go? What is immovable? Okay. Papaji actually had lived in relative obscurity for many years until actually he was actually discovered by Westerners, not people in India. Hippies in the 60s found him living in caves along the river Ganga. And Papaji then started to just talk. And eventually that gained some momentum, and he became more popular and used to give what was called satsang in Lucknow, India, North India, which is the Sanskrit word for association with the truth. It's what this is right here, that all of us are here. For what reason are we here? Association with truth. No other reason. There may be a lot of other reasons too, but those reasons all point to the truth as well, if you really look at what all those other reasons are. Okay. So, now we go to these two. These two are sort of together. Eli Jackson and Antoinette Varner. Okay. Antoinette Varner later became known as Gangaji from the name that Papaji, her teacher, gave her. Antoinette Varner was born in 1942 in Mississippi, in a very provincial environment, and was raised with all of the values that we know here in America. So here we have another radical departure. We're in America now. And she got married to a doctor, had a child, was a school teacher, wanted to have the normal American, life that we all had then thought we were supposed to have. And we could relate to this because some longing, some burning deep within her, and in this period, having been married with a child and thought she was in love with her husband and her child, and yet was absolutely tormented by a longing. Longing is the operative word that is really her word that she uses for us all. The longing that will not let you go. We know this very well because we've tried to fill up the longing with so much in our lives, whether it's, food, power, fame, money, sex, drugs, thoughts, concepts, ideas. And the longing won't fill up. In fact, the longing should not be filled up. We need the longing here. And the longing took Gangaji from Texas and left her child. Well, no, actually, she brought her child. She left her husband, she left her job. And we can relate to this now. Where did she move? To San Francisco in 1972. Looking for something. And we can relate to this. Moving to San Francisco looking for something, looking for the truth, and just burning with a longing. So, several years of living in poverty, working as a waitress and trying to raise her daughter, and doing Vipassana meditation. And she met this guy, Eli Jackson. And Eli Jackson was a hippie from Oregon, around her age, who was living in Bolinas, in Marin, and Berkeley at the time. I think it was first Berkeley. And she met him, and they fell in love, and they were lovers. And he is a seeker also from his childhood of wanting to know the truth. And he actually traveled through lots of Asia looking for a teacher and didn't. Anyway, he met Gangaji before she was Gangaji, when she was Tony, Antoinette Varner. And they became lovers. And Gangaji and Tony said that there was a competition here with truth, that Eli was more interested in truth than in me. And she was really upset, and it just amped up the juice of her longing. I'm looking for a soulmate. This was her thrust in life. I'm looking for a soulmate. I am absolutely in love with this man. And this man isn't in love with me as I think he should be in love with me. He's more in love with truth. The core, the essence, however we want to describe that, self. And Gangaji, Tony was in a sort of a competition. It's like me and truth. Well, this is a crucial point because Eli was really her first teacher at this point in this. And, the beauty of this is that so many of us have actually fallen in love and maybe gotten our hearts broken. And maybe we can relate to this. Or have this first even glimpse of, this is it. This is beautiful. I love you. And this is crucial. This is essential. Because this is a little crack. Who cares if it's based on another person? That's not the point here. The point is it's still a crack in us of the glimpse of what's here already, pounding on the door of our hard shell, of our rigid thought structures, saying, wake up. And we do fall in love. And we do get our hearts broken so often because, and thank blessedly we're broken, because it's not the truth. It's the truth in a form, say, truth in a disguise. And this is what so much of their relationship was really based on in those early days. And they had, Gangaji and Tony at this time was an acupuncturist here in San Francisco to 1987 actually, and they lived in Marin some of the time. And Eli was a psychotherapist with the spiritual viewpoint of transpersonal psychotherapist. And he too felt there's something more. And so in 1990, he just left his job, left her went to India, and he was actually going to study with a Sufi. He was going to go to Morocco and study with a Sufi, and that didn't work. He ended up in India and met Papaji, and when he met Papaji, he knew in that instant the look and silence of being with Papaji. Now, he had had most of his life in preparation for this event, so it just happened. And he woke up to the truth, and then came back to America, took Tony that same year, that summer. He was there in January, she came back in the summer. And then she came to Papaji, and then she just like exploded. Such that everyone around her in like the Lucknow satsang circle around Papaji, could see this. And it became kind of controversial. This American blonde woman with this curly hair with a southern accent who just didn't seem to fit in, really, from a visual point of view, just exploded with truth in silence. And she began giving satsang right there and giving people these glimpses through silent contact and working with, there's no scriptures here. We're not talking any kind of, there's no books involved. We're not reading anything. There's no scriptures. We're not even really doing meditation. And it's not even for the special few. It's for anyone who can hear. Papaji had this saying. He said, I don't care who comes to satsang. As long as you're in a physical body, as long as you are incarnate, you have every right to know what you really are. And that's really this teaching here. The teaching here is to stop. Stop all your strategies. Stop all of your looking. Stop the search. There's nothing to search for. If you think there's something to search for, look at that more. What is that? What are you really searching for? And then tell the truth about it. So, the truth here is really Gangaji's main avenue of expression as she talks to people. It's tell the truth. She came back to America and has given satsang. And what goes on in satsang with Gangaji? Because there's no prerequisites. You don't need anything. There's the silence that we've experienced in the first half hour here. This really is it. What's going on in the silence in your own consciousness, in your own mind? It's the point of attention of I. This is self-inquiry. Who am I? What is I? And it's attention. What is attention? Attention is your conscious awareness of you. I exist. I know I'm here in this room. I know I have an identity of a body and my past and my future and my present situation sitting in this room. Okay, and I have these emotions and I have these thoughts and feelings and I feel uncomfortable or happy or sad or whatever it is, but it all is I. Who knows all of this? I know this. Who is I? What is I? Is it a thing? Is it a body? Is it your mind? What really is I? This is self-inquiry. This is what Ramana wrote about in his simple book, Who Am I? This is what Papaji developed to more of taking it out of an esoterica. And Gangaji really just takes it to, the supermarket in America, literally. Because it's so simple, we can miss it. In fact, we always miss it. That's why we're here. That's why we want to wake up, because we're always missing it. Who am I? What is I? All right. The inquiry is take I and trace it back to its source. From where does I arise? If you can, first of all, go through your thoughts, and this is the value of meditation, and you all, I'm assuming, have meditation practices where you are gaining the ability to concentrate. Papaji calls what we call meditation as concentration. He says real meditation is really taking the I and looking to its source. And when you're at the source and staying there, that's real meditation. Real meditation is not picking through the thoughts of our mind. Nice, lovely, bad, whatever. Or just even observing them as the witness, which is so often what we do too. The witness. Well, then who is the witness of the thoughts? This is getting into what I'm talking about, the I. Who is looking? Who's the one who sees this river of thoughts flow by? Okay, you don't identify with them. You know enough. You're intelligent enough now to know not to identify with those thoughts, to pick them out and say, yes, this is what I want, and as soon as I get out of this room, I'm going to go out and chase it. You know this. But still, go deeper. Who is the one who sees the thoughts flow through? Who really is that? And then open it. Open that attention. Because in many ways, you can, the first view of that, maybe as we're talking here now, is it's like a little pinpoint of I, it's like a sentient, conscious thing that says, yes, I know I exist, but really open that. And to open that means the innocence of all of our thinking the innocence arises, all of our thinking starts evaporating. And this is why we get still. This is why we get really, really, really still. So we maintain an open awareness. Now, a lot of what Gangaji does in satsang isn't really even what I'm saying. This is the basis of it. Because it's not about just being still. As the beauty of this first half hour, if we could take the beauty of this first half hour and then just have it with us everywhere we go, which is really what is, but maybe we're not aware of it. What Gangaji does is works directly with where you are right now in your mind, in your thinking, and exposing it. So the first step in a Gangaji satsang is exposure. I feel fear. I feel pain. Who's the one who feels it? Well, you can't even get to the who or the I because you're so covered with rage or pain or fear or whatever, desire, longing. So she directs one into the center of the longing, into the center of the fear, into the center of the rage, the pain. Yes, it's like Ramana didn't distract himself. He faced death. He went directly into the center. This is what Gangaji does today. Whatever it is, it's anything and everything. Whether it's outside, inside, your next door neighbor, whatever it is. If you put your focused attention directly into the center of whatever it is, and it only takes seconds, really. If it's really looking into the center without a story of this, that, or the other thing, this is where we want to maintain a stillness, a still mind, because the mind will invariably spin out. This is what our minds do. The power of imagination is so tremendous. The spinning out of our minds. The power of imagination. That is self itself, is that power. You are the universe in that you have this power to be the universe. You think it, so therefore you are it. But you're not free. In fact, we're very caught up because of that power. And we play with it all the time. we're in total bondage. So what we really want is freedom. That's the whole point of this lineage and me being here, is this feast that is your heart of hearts. It's not abstract, it's love. It really is. Love in the deepest way that you know love to be. Not emotional love. Emotional love is pales in comparison to this deep, abiding love that is the feast that is your heart, that is at the core of rage, of envy, of hatred, of jealousy, of survival, of I can't pay the rent or whatever, fear, pain, physical illness. Just a brief personal story was I met Gangaji not even realizing what it was. In 1994 I had an illness where I faced death. And very similar to Ramana, Ramana seemed more willing to just fall into death. I was fighting it all the way. But I was maneuvered. It was like the universe had maneuvered me in a situation where it was a no escape. There was a no escape. I had nowhere to go, no one to turn to, nothing to do. It was facing death or maybe just feel horrible anxiety. But somehow, some way, I didn't feel the horrible anxiety. I faced death. And it stopped. Everything stopped. And I felt, I'm laying in a hospital bed. They're waiting for me to die, literally. Nurses, doctors say, oh yeah, well, we'll just wait, ring the bell, ring the buzzer at the side of your bed. If maybe we'll try to intercept and do some life-saving on you. And it was just so beautiful to see that it's not at all what you think it is. There's something that takes you. It's like, oh yeah, I really could die now. I know that I have all these ambitions and hopes and dreams and things. That I want to do. I have all these desires. I have all this, the Sanskrit word is vasana, which is the proclivities that still have to come up and be worked on or manifested, whether it's sex, drugs, rock and roll, or whatever it is. Oh, I still have this stuff in me somewhere. I'm not done yet. And yet, in spite of all of that, in spite of not being done, not ready to leave, when everything stopped at that moment and no escape, there wasn't an I there. That's the point. This is self-inquiry. There's no I. If an I appears, oh, you're not ready to leave. I want to go back out and, have some good sex. No. The I wasn't there. And in that, I am absolutely, there's something there that was like, yes, I could die now. This is absolutely incredibly beautiful. I'm ready. How I could be ready in this. This is what Gangaji points us to. This is what all this lineage points us to. This is self-inquiry. It's not a technique, really. It's not a methodology, because a methodology is a thought that you use. This is the truth. This is beingness itself. Self-inquiry. Who is the one who's doing your life? Look at it that way. who's really creating, the New Age movement? I used to be into the New Age movement in the 70s. I was visualizing very, 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 very diligently to create my beautiful reality with my home and my car and my job and my lover and, all the wonderful things and all the good, happy thoughts and all of this. Visualize it, and then the mind is so powerful, it'll create it for you. Well, I tried that. Thank God I had this illness that came out of nowhere and almost killed me and forced me into a no escape. And woke up. At that point, but still I was so dense, I couldn't really wake up in the hospital because my mind came back and I was filled with fear and rage and horror. No, it wasn't really until, through grace, my dear friend who's sitting over there introduced me to Gangaji one day. And I still didn't really get it right away. Really wasn't until November 15th, 1998. It's relatively recently. Where Gangaji looked into my eyes and said, I know who you are. Stop lying. Tell the truth. Stop wasting your life. And it's just, of course, I've been wasting my life. My life is a lie. Because the doer, I was the one who was creating my life, visualizing my beautiful life with my beautiful home and car and lover and everything. And I was totally unhappy. Well, not totally unhappy. My mind, and the longing could not be filled up. The deepest level of unhappiness, the longing, could not be filled up. Okay. Yes, I very much would like questions. I would like actually even to have questions around stuck points in your path to see how self-inquiry may apply to you, work with you on this. Yes. Anyone? Yes.
I have a question which is not so much about a personal stuck point as about understanding a little bit more about Ramana Maharshi's self-inquiry method.
Yes.
And also how it may coincide with some of what I understand about Buddhism. So, you've asked many times today, rhetorically, as what Ramana Maharshi would say, who is the I doing the asking? Who is this person? Which I think is a Tibetan method of inquiry as well. And one of the Buddhist answer to it is that this I, this ego, is nothing, is insubstantial, and the idea being that when you realize that, you will realize that the I is nothing, but it is also everything because it is all that is. You're connected with unitary consciousness.
Yes.
And so that the ego is insubstantial, but the self, is amazing.
Yes.
So is that similar? Is that where Ramana Maharshi is going? I'm not so articulate.
Absolutely. But what I'm getting, what you're pointing to is this, the ego still appears, even though it's nothing. Because it appears, you're still grabbing onto, it looks like something, and maybe something important, Right. And the importance and the somethingness of the ego is only because it is the self. It's inert, but where true life is the ground below it, is the self. So it looks like the ego. To really understand that the appearance isn't the problem. You don't blank out into what's called technically samadhi, or maybe satori. I don't know what terms we have here, but is this correct that the appearance doesn't still seem like nothing? See and this is the inquiry actually. To go to look at the appearance, to really look at the appearance, is to see the life of what the appearance springs forth from. And then the appearance is just an appearance. It's not, it can be here as an appearance. Body, mind, the universe, whatever, thoughts. And it's nothing, the nothingness that you're asking about in this appearance is to see that the somethingness is the ground of being. When you see that the somethingness is the ground of being, then the appearance is merely an appearance. It really is nothing. And of course, the big metaphor that we have used in India for centuries is go to your dream. You know, when you're in a dream and it seems so real, there's a me that's dreaming this dream and I'm involved in this situation, and you wake up and it's instantly gone. Well, who is the one who dreamt? Who's the one who awoke? Where did the dream go? The dream is nothing. That's just a metaphor. And so too, then, this world is like the dream. We just need to wake up. We're sleeping. If that makes any sense. Anyone else? Yes.
Yeah, I have a question about, since you're in a path involved with teachers, as opposed to other spiritual paths that are teacher-less, how does your relationship with Gangaji play a part in your practice? You talk some about
okay, beautiful question, because Gangaji is just an appearance in physical form that is... She will disappear. Gangaji is really this is what I didn't know. What you're pointing to is what I didn't know for a long time in going to all these Gangaji satsangs, is that Gangaji is already in. But in my denseness, even with my death experience, the denseness, I still saw her as this physical form that was radiating out some kind of peace into the room or around me, some light, as if there's this cause and effect. You know, she's over there radiating peace here. And then it was like, oh, no, that wasn't it. She's already in. She's already been in, but it's not the she. It's what's in common with us all. So, I needed the teacher to break through the thickness of my own ignorance. But you could do it in a death experience, as Ramana did, or I attempted to do, but failed, but partially did. You could do it with a lover. You can. People have, you wake up with a lover. You can do that. You don't have to have a teacher. You use the world. The world is your guru, is another way of saying this. Any experience, any thought, any concept, any feeling points to the truth. That's self-inquiry. You don't need a teacher. Now, realistically, though, because ignorance being what it is, Maya, whatever word you want to use for it, this stuff, this blinded thing that is nothing but doesn't look like nothing necessarily until we wake up. Within the dream, often you need someone who's outside of the dream to tell you it's a dream in no uncertain terms, and to give you the glimpse, if even seconds, just the glimpse, so that once you're cracked, just a bit, whether it's through a teacher, through illness, through death, through a lover, through an accident, through mental illness, through anything, I don't know what, it can be anything. Once you're cracked, you can never, the ruthless rule of the mind is it can never go back to, it always wants to go back to that which gave it the most juice. Once it's had a peak experience, you're never really the same. And this is the beauty of self-inquiry. Because self-inquiry then will say, take your peak experience, and with your focused attention, go right into the middle of it. If you want bliss, go right there. There's always more. It's infinite, it's fathomless. Love is fathomless. Did that answer your question about teachers needing, not needing?
Well, yeah, in a general way it did. I was also curious as to the actual you're following a path where you actually have a teacher,
Okay.
how much sadhana is required?
There's no formula for this at all. It's a very individual thing. With me now and with many people, it gets very subtle. We know the grossities aren't real, aren't where happiness is. But there are these subtle elements. There's the subtle I thought in self-inquiry that is so subtle. You think it is. You think you've achieved something. Or you get a glimpse of a light or something. And then the mind will glom onto it. And I know something where their I emerges so more strongly with ever. Spiritual ego is just the most. But isn't it called enlightenment sickness in your tradition? See, this is where I have found the guru very, very necessary, particularly if you're in an enlightenment sickness thing. Maybe not so much on another level, just because you need confirmation. That's the word Gangaji uses, confirmation. Confirmation is like the graduation, as it were, almost. It's like when you know and she knows right then and there that you're not playing any more games, the ego isn't grabbing onto, I know enlightenment, I am enlightened. I am enlightened is a lie. That's a thought. And so many people go around, beautiful spiritual people who are really sincere. I am enlightened, look at me. Well, it's all ego. See, take self-inquiry as the tool here. And it's just I and me. It's all about I and me. Well, it's a better I and me now. A more infused with light I and me, but it's still an I and a me. So the teacher can slay us. If you need that, if you need to be slain, as I needed to be slain, as I still need Gangaji to slay me, but you can have the world slay you. Your buddies, your lovers, whatever, can slay you in their own way. And you can feel it, the painful method. Front door, back door. There's many ways to get into self-inquiry. That's why you can't say it's a technique. It's the non-technique technique. Because there's an infinite number of ways to self-inquire, because this is an infinite world of name and form. All from the ground of being. Yes.
I think it's kind of interesting, this debate that goes on about whether you need a teacher or not. In my opinion, you have a teacher whether you want it or not,
yes.
Whether they're embodied or not. Everything that is your reality has the potential to teach you, He had a teacher, a mountain,
Yes.
But I'm also interested, is this like, did he call the mountain his teacher, or did he have other embodied souls that he looked to?
No other embodied souls. No. And the mountain was, he never really, it's really funny that the people in the ashram that grew up around him called the mountain his teacher. He never even really called the mountain his teacher. All he ever expressed was Arunachala. He was just expressed it as the core, like it was one with the core of his being. And in my experience, when I have gone to some mountaintops, some beautiful mountaintops around California, and you're at the top of a glacier, you can just feel that feeling. But no, he really never. Ramana himself never said that the I source is the teacher. If there's a teacher, he didn't even use that word, and he didn't. No. Never. But your question about anything, as I had said, anything can be a teacher. Ramana really didn't. That's the beauty of Ramana, is that he didn't have a physical teacher. There are very few. Very, very few. Even they say Jesus, had physical teachers. It's like But, in a way, if anything can be your teacher, if the world is your teacher in its myriad names and forms, then then we all have physical teachers. Ramana actually, there was a book that his uncle gave him called some Hindu text about the 63 Tamil saints with just stories of renunciation and divine visions. And actually, he did have one little scripture when he was like 16 years old before he went through his death experience that was like a teacher to him. Anyway. And is there a question behind that statement or not?
No, it's just that I don't see why it's so much debated,
Mm-hmm.
Should you have a teacher or shouldn't you? I mean, you obviously do. It's just what you label it.
Often, people aren't disciplined too. That's the other thing, People's minds are, the drunken monkey mind, and the teacher, you need something from the exterior to slay you often. And that's the value of teacher.
I also think it's ironical sometimes, like the relationship that Gangaji had with her husband.
Yes.
You would think she was the most important thing in the world to him, and she obviously did. But yet he took off to India, and you wonder how much he considered. His spirit was great, but his soul, his groundedness in the reality that they shared, you wonder, but yet, it worked out. And I'm sure she doesn't regret it.
I've been in satsang with Eli a number of times, and he has this story about, when he was looking for a woman in those early days in Berkeley in the 70s, he had this thing about being a teacher to enlighten a woman. That was like his thing, and and then years later now, Gangaji has so overshadowed him in her draw that he said all he had was lessons of humility after that. Because the roles reversed. He was her first teacher, and then she became his teacher, like literally for the rest of his life.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I'm very happy to be here. Yes. Om Shanti, Shanti.
And we'll have time for tea and talking outside. Also, usually a group gathers to go out to lunch, so if anyone wants to come for lunch, that'd be great. Are there any announcements?
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.